Cases appealed to the Supreme Court by Dr. William Eger. Although it is the head of one of the three branches of U.S. government, the Supreme Court's inner workings are somewhat elusive to many people. Information about the head of the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, is not that easy to find. One of the most popular questions about the Supreme Court are about its process. How are the cases heard before the Supreme Court selected? And who selects these cases? First, let's look at the process. Every year, the Supreme Court receives between 7,000 and 8,000 petitions to hear cases. These cases can be both criminal or civil. This is where most of the Supreme Court's cases come from. These inferior courts include the courts of the U.S. Appellate Division, which deal with strictly federal law, as well as state Supreme Courts, which are the highest court in state judicial systems across the United States. Of these thousands of cases, only around 100 to 150 cases a year are selected to be heard. Of the thousands of cases that are submitted to the Supreme Court for their review, approximately 80 are eventually heard in person by the court. Another 100 or so are handled administratively and disposed of. This brings us to our first question. How are cases selected to be heard by the Supreme Court? The court's jurisdiction is very limited. Most cases that the court declines to hear do not fall into it. The selected cases must fit specific criteria. The first is disputes between states. Another instance that will bring a case before the Supreme Court is when two different U.S. appellate courts or two different state Supreme Courts interpret the same laws differently. The third and final criteria to be heard before the Supreme Court are cases involving possible violations of the Constitution, including the Bill of Rights. Any violation of the Bill of Rights will most likely wind up in front of the Supreme Court if it is not resolved. This brings us to our next question. Who selects the cases heard by the Supreme Court? Who weighs the criteria, reviews the guidelines, and makes the actual decision? The first step in this process leads us to one of the lesser known parts of how the Supreme Court works. The 9 justices split up the thousands of different petitions to be heard that arrive every year. To understand how the work is divided up amongst the justices, we have to take a step back and take a look at another aspect of the judicial branch. That's the circuit courts. There are 13 appellate courts in the United States judicial system. There's 11 normal circuit courts, and then one for the District of Columbia, and one that is known as the Federal Circuit. This plays a large role in which justice gets which cases. Cases from the state Supreme Courts are addressed to the justices who have the responsibility for those states within the circuits they are assigned. Justices receive the petitions from the circuits that they are assigned, as you can see on this map. They are also the recipients of petitions from state Supreme Courts of the states within these circuits. For example, Justice Elena Kagan receives all the petitions that come out of not only her circuit, which is the Ninth Circuit over on the West Coast, but also from the state Supreme Courts from those states, such as Montana. If there is a case that reaches the state Supreme Court in Montana and the defendant wants to appeal the decision, and it goes up to the Supreme Court and it arrives at her desk first. Any petitions coming from the state of New Jersey would arrive at Justice Alito's desk. He is assigned the Third Circuit as a whole, but also he might receive petitions from the New Jersey State Supreme Court. This division of labor is only half the story. While splitting it up amongst 9 people reduces the workload for each of the justices, looking over between 800 and 900 cases each would still be a daunting task. To help him in this task, each justice has 3 or 4 clerks who are lawyers who have finished law school yet have not begun practicing law, who want to do this job because of the prestige behind it. These clerks do most of the reading, most of the note-taking, and summarize each of the memorandum to give to the justices. The justices, in turn, go through, read the memorandum, look at the case file as much as they need to, and start making a decision. After the justice has looked over the case, read the memorandum from their clerk, if they decide that it's a case that they think should go before the court, now their work begins. They have to go ahead and find 3 other justices that are willing to endorse hearing the case. This is known as the Rule of 4. After the Rule of 4 is invoked and there are 4 justices who want to bring the case before the court, the process formally begins. When 4 justices have decided to hear the case, it'll be brought before the court. The first step is to issue a writ of certiorari. What this does is this requests all of the documentation and the case file for the case to be brought to the Supreme Court. To summarize, the court receives around 8,000 petitions every year of parties wanting to have their case heard before the Supreme Court. Through the process, which involves the Supreme Court justices reviewing cases that come from the states and their circuits as well as their circuits, only about 80 are heard.